Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're watching this video, you're probably looking for a job in Japan. Great news, I've been through the process myself, so today I want to give you 5 possible ways that you can also land a job in Japan. If you find this video helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as leave a comment down below if you have any additional questions. I will do my best to help in answering those. To preface this video, I have been living in Japan for a little over 6 years now as a recruiter. So to some degree, I do have some professional knowledge and insights for helping people find jobs in Japan. With that being said, today's video is not so much professional advice, but more for entertainment purposes. First, let me share my story. So I graduated from university in the US in 2018. Originally, I'm from North Carolina. I've never been to Japan at this time, but my brother actually lived in Japan for a few years in the past. Since I was graduating, as kind of a graduation present, my mom gifted me a trip to Japan. I didn't really know what to expect at the time. I always had a love for Japanese food and Japanese culture. At that time though, I was not focused at all about the possibility of moving to Japan. However, as soon as I first stepped foot into Tokyo, everything changed. To me, the city was full of energy and I felt so motivated, and basically everything that I planned to do after university, I threw to the side and decided that I wanted to come to Japan. In the 2 to 3 weeks that I was there for this vacation, I started networking very aggressively. While networking, 2 people actually told me about a career forum called the Boston Career Forum, or BCF. When signing up for the Boston Career Forum, I found a few companies that did not require Japanese and that could also sponsor a visa for me to go into Japan. What ended up happening was I interviewed for 2 of those companies. They were recruitment firms. I actually added the talent acquisition and the HR on LinkedIn, and because of that, my network grew and I found 2 other agencies on LinkedIn. What ended up happening was I reached out to these other 2 firms and I asked them if they were also going to be at Boston Career Forum, because I was interviewing with their competitors. Unfortunately, they weren't. However, they were also very interested to speak with me because I was already interviewing with their competitors. In the end, after speaking with 4 companies, I decided to take one offer. In December 2018, I moved to Japan, and in January 2019, I started my life in Japan as well as my journey as a recruiter. From my story, you could probably tell it was a mix of networking and luck. So today I want to give you 5 solid ways of possibly landing a job in Japan. The first method is actually the one that I mentioned in my story, which is the Boston Career Forum. The Boston Career Forum is actually part of careerforum.net, which hosts large in-person as well as online job fairs. The main target market of the Boston Career Forum is typically Japanese students who are studying abroad in the US, who will return to Japan after graduating, but who also want to join global or gaishike companies in Japan. At the Boston Career Forum, there's typically 150 to 200 companies that join every year. While I mentioned that the focus is for new grads, there are some opportunities for mid-career recruitment as well. The great thing about the Boston Career Forum is you have to sign up in advance. You can look at a lot of different companies, see the requirements, and then apply based on that. If you get the interview, you get to go there in person, finish the whole interview process, and also get an offer on the spot. So it really speeds up the whole interview process instead of taking 1 to 2 to 3 months to finish. I'm really happy that I went to Boston in the end because I met a lot of great people who are still some of my closest friends today. With the requirements that come from Boston, a lot of companies will also list if they would give you visa sponsorship, so that's something you don't have to really stress too much about if you get the job. Method 2, use specialized job boards. In Japan, there's actually a lot of job boards that you can use, with a lot of them being foreign friendly. Some of the top foreign friendly ones would be Gaijinpot, Jobs in Japan, Daijob, as well as LinkedIn. If you are using LinkedIn, please be sure to filter for jobs based in Japan. The good thing about these job boards is usually you can filter out companies that only require English as well as companies that support your visa. If you are a more technical person, for example, having a career geared more towards IT, I would recommend Tokyo Dev as well as Japan Dev. I know that a lot of people tend to think that Japan is very technologically advanced. However, that's not really the case. The current situation in Japan is actually that there are not enough developers So Japan has been, in recent years, outsourcing a lot of developers from overseas. So as a recruiter, one trend that we're actually seeing in the market is a lot of these companies, especially very Japanese ones, that are making English-only IT departments. There's actually a labor shortage in Japan for a lot of these very technical roles, so in the near future it's anticipated that a lot more foreigners will be moving into Japan for these areas. Tokyo Dev and Japan Dev are both really great because they will list the companies that offer visa support, relocation support, as well as roles that do or do not require Japanese language. Method 3. Use a recruitment agency or consider becoming a recruiter yourself. As mentioned, in Japan there is a huge labor shortage, especially for very specialized technical roles, as well as roles that require bilingual capabilities. This is actually why recruitment agencies are such a big thing in Japan and why it's such a lucrative business. There are many recruitment agencies that you could look into when looking for a job. Some of these might be Robert Walters, Robert Half, RGF, JAC, Michael Page, Hayes, and a lot of other ones as well. Personally, I would highly recommend to use a recruitment agency whenever you are job searching. You should always consider working with different agencies and different recruiters because some of them are more specialized in one certain area or function. Typically, if they have a strong track record within this function or industry, it would actually make it a lot easier for you to get your foot in the door for an interview or possibly landing that job. One piece of advice that I would like to give for people though is whenever you are connecting with different recruiters and agencies, be sure to do your due diligence whenever you are looking them up. As mentioned, I am a recruiter. I mainly specialize in IT, but sometimes I would have people from overseas reaching out to me asking for roles related to sales and marketing. As a recruiter, we do want to help people find jobs, but sometimes we're getting so many requests per day or per week, so it's hard for us to reply to a lot of people. One thing you can do to stand out when reaching out to these recruiters is be sure just to look at their profile and understand what they are hiring for typically. For example, if you're very skilled within supply chain, look for recruiters who have strong track records in supply chain recruitment. It would be a waste of your time as well as the recruiter's time if you're specialized in one job but you're reaching out to a recruiter who specializes in another job. There are a lot of pros and cons with working with agencies. Sometimes you might just find some agents that are not the best. It's not always that case though. There are a lot of really good recruiters as well. The other really good thing about working with agencies is typically once you're in their database, they can always share updated information as well as opportunities for you, and they can help you through the whole process to where you have less on your plate to handle. If you don't come from a technical background or if you currently do recruitment, I would also recommend trying recruitment in Japan. The market in Japan is a lot different compared to any other markets around the world. With that being said, it is again very lucrative to work as a recruiter in Japan. It can also be very stressful. In my case, I think I was a little bit lucky. Again, 6 years ago, the market was a little bit different compared to now. In a lot of cases, some firms do require some level of Japanese, but it's not always that case. There are some recruitment agencies that will still hire you from overseas if you don't speak Japanese, but you just have a strong track record in sales or recruitment in general. Recruitment in Japan is a very lucrative career path. Companies struggle to find the right talent, so recruiters help fill that gap. Method 4. Consider an English teaching job. English teaching is actually one of the easiest ways to move to Japan, and there's a lot of different programs that also sponsor your visa ship. Some of these might be JET, Eon, Nova, or Interact. One of the downsides for an English teaching job, of course, is that the salary is a lot lower compared to more technical roles. However, if your goal is to first come to Japan, I always think it's a really great option. In a lot of cases, even though the salary is low, some of these different programs have really good benefits, and also it's a way for you to learn Japanese while you're teaching English as well. A lot of these English teaching programs do not require you to have a background in English teaching, but they would at least require a bachelor's level degree from university, as well as native level of English. One potential drawback though of English teaching jobs is depending on which program that you take, some of them have different application times throughout the year, so it might be a little bit more competitive or a very lengthy process. Another drawback for English teaching jobs though is that the placement could be very random. So you might not land the job in Tokyo or Osaka, it might be a very small town in the middle of nowhere within Japan. Again, if your main goal is just to get the visa and come here, I do think English teaching would be a very good opportunity. One other thing you can also consider is once you get that visa and become an English teacher, maybe you just have to do the role for a few months and then consider finding a new job once you're in Japan. Once you are in Japan, it is usually a lot easier to find a job. Method 5 would be to learn Japanese. I know it's a lot easier said than done. Japanese is a very difficult language, but if you are planning on moving to Japan and staying in Japan for the long term, I think it's very, very important. Especially if you are not working a technical role like something related to IT or finance. Something like sales and marketing Japan does require a very strong level of Japanese. Not only do you have to speak and understand Japanese, but you also need to understand the culture if you're planning on working a role like that. One good thing about learning Japanese though is that you don't have to do it from the country you're at. In a lot of cases you can apply for Japanese language schools in Japan, which will actually support a visa for you. As mentioned, for the English teaching job, this just might be a good opportunity to get your foot in the door for coming into Japan, and then maybe after a few months or after a year of Japanese language school, consider switching into a permanent position. From a lot of candidates that I deal with as a recruiter, speaking Japanese not only helps you land a job, but it can also help you whenever you're trying to grow your career into, for example, a management role where you might be managing people in Japanese and English. I did also want to share a bonus method if you want to just move to Japan temporarily. Recently, Japan has been granting a Japan Digital Nomad visa. This is a visa where you could come to work in Japan for up to 6 months at a time. To clarify though, with this visa, you do have to have a job from your home country that will allow you to work remotely in Japan. The good thing about this visa is it allows you to come to Japan for up to 6 months at a time. You can also bring your spouse as well as your family. I think that this is a very good option if you just want to first experience what living in Japan is like, and then in the future you can always consider looking directly for jobs in Japan afterwards. With this digital nomad visa, you are not technically allowed to look for new jobs once you are here. You have to remain on that visa. I think overall this is just a really good experience for remote workers who want to again understand some culture, or maybe just test out the waters to see if Japan is a place that they would really want to consider in living. If you do end up landing a job in Japan, please be sure to check out my previous video where I do an apartment tour, as well as giving some advice and some tips on how to find an apartment in Japan. That's it for today. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you would like to see more educational content just like this. Please also be sure to leave a comment down below. I'm doing my best to answer as many questions as I can. Until next time.